My name is Nancy, and I'm 29 years old. 5 days ago, my older sister looked me in the eye and said, "Find somewhere else to die. You're useless now." I was still in a wheelchair. Still recovering from the accident that nearly killed me. And she was throwing me out of the only home I'd ever known because she believed she'd inherited everything, all $47 million of our parents' estate. But at the official reading, our family lawyer, Mr. Burrows, asked one simple question that made Victoria's face go white. And in that moment, everything changed. This is the story of how the sister who abandoned me when I was broken learned that our parents saw everything. And how sometimes, love shows up in ways we never expect. Before I continue, I need to ask you something. If you've ever felt invisible, overlooked, or underestimated by the people who were supposed to love you most, this story is for you. But here's the thing, only about 40% of you watching have actually subscribed. If this story resonates with you, if you want to see more real-life stories about justice and truth, please take 2 seconds to hit that subscribe button. It costs you nothing, but it means everything to me and helps these stories reach others who need to hear them. Now, let me tell you how this all began. 6 months ago, I was a completely different person. I was working as a marine biologist in Miami, living my dream studying coral reef restoration. I had my own apartment, a career I loved, and a future I'd worked incredibly hard to build. My parents, Sarah and James Lincoln, were so proud. Dad would introduce me at parties as our daughter, the scientist, and Mom kept every article I was quoted in. Victoria, my sister, she's 35, had always been different. She'd married Patrick Dante when she was 23, a real estate developer who came from money. They lived in a mansion in Coral Gables, drove matching Mercedes, and honestly, I barely saw her except at Christmas and Mom's birthday. We weren't close, but we weren't enemies either. We were just different. Then came March 15th. I was driving home from a research dive when a semi-truck ran a red light. I don't remember the impact. I don't remember the sound of metal crushing or glass shattering. What I do remember is waking up in Jackson Memorial Hospital 3 days later, unable to feel my legs. The doctor said I was lucky to be alive. Crushed vertebrae, internal bleeding, a fractured skull. They said I might never walk again. I was 28 years old, and my entire life had been erased in one moment. My parents dropped everything. Mom quit her book club and her volunteer work. Dad postponed his retirement plans. They converted the downstairs guest room in their house into a recovery room for me, installed handles in the bathroom, built a ramp, bought a hospital bed. They were there every single day of my 3-month hospital stay. Victoria visited once. She brought flowers, stood at the foot of my bed for maybe 10 minutes, said all the right things, "You're so strong, Nance. You'll get through this," and then left. I didn't hear from her again for 2 weeks. Not a text. Not a call. Nothing. But I was too focused on survival to care. The physical therapy was brutal. Every movement was agony. The doctors were cautiously optimistic, there was nerve damage, but not complete. I might walk again. Might. That word carried all my hope and all my fear. My parents never once made me feel like a burden. Mom would sit with me during therapy sessions, holding my hand when I cried from the pain. Dad researched every experimental treatment, called specialists across the country. They poured their hearts into my recovery. "We're not losing you," Mom would whisper when the nights were darkest. "You're going to dance at your wedding someday, Nancy. You're going to walk on beaches and climb stairs and live a full, beautiful life." I believe that with everything I am. For months after my accident, I got a phone call that destroyed what was left of my world. My parents had been driving home from a charity gala when a drunk driver crossed the center line on the Palmetto Expressway. They died instantly. Both of them. Together. I was still in a wheelchair. I couldn't even attend their funeral without help. My best friend Kate pushed me down the aisle while I sobbed so hard I couldn't breathe. I kept thinking this had to be a nightmare. 4 months ago, I was healthy and independent. Now I was broken and orphaned. Victoria handled all the funeral arrangements. I was grateful at first. I was too shattered to make decisions about flowers and eulogies and burial plots. She seemed to step up, seemed to finally be the sister I needed. At the wake, she held my hand and said, "We only have each other now, Nancy. I'm going to take care of you." I believed her. God help me, I believed her. The first week after the funeral was a blur of grief and paperwork and casseroles from neighbors. I was living in my parents' house, surrounded by their things, Dad's reading glasses on the coffee table, Mom's half-finished crossword puzzle on the kitchen counter. Everything reminded me of them. Everything hurt. Victoria came by every day that week. She started going through their papers, organizing documents, making phone calls. "Just trying to help," she said. "You focus on healing. I'll handle the business side of things." I should have paid more attention. I should have asked questions. But I was drowning in grief and pain medication and the exhausting work of physical therapy. I trusted her. Then, 8 days after the funeral, Victoria showed up at the house with her husband Patrick and a woman I didn't know. Victoria's whole demeanor had changed. She wasn't warm anymore. She was cold, businesslike. "Nancy, we need to talk," she said, not even sitting down. "I've been going through Mom and Dad's estate with our lawyer. The will is very clear." I wheeled myself closer to the coffee table where she'd spread out a stack of papers. My hands were shaking. "What do you mean?" "They left everything to me," Victoria said, her voice flat. "The estate is valued at approximately $47 million. The house, the investments, the vacation property in the Keys, Dad's business holdings, all of it comes to me." I felt like I'd been punched. What? That can't be right. Mom and Dad wouldn't. It's right here in black and white. Victoria tapped the papers with one perfectly manicured fingernail. "You're not mentioned in the will at all, Nancy." The woman with her, apparently her personal attorney, Elizabeth Shawn, nodded grimly. "I've reviewed the documents. They're legitimate and legally binding." I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. My parents had left me nothing? After everything? After they'd given up their lives to care for me? "I don't understand," I finally whispered. "Why would they do this?" Victoria shrugged. "Maybe they knew you'd never be able to manage this kind of money in your condition. Maybe they trusted me more." The cruelty of that statement hit me like a physical blow. My condition. Like I was damaged goods. Like I was less than human. "But Victoria," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm living here. This is my home now. I'm still recovering." "About that." Victoria glanced at Patrick, then back at me. "The house is mine now. I'm planning to sell it. There's a developer who's already made an offer, a very generous one. Patrick knows him. We need you to move out." "Move out?" I stared at her. "Victoria, I can barely transfer from my wheelchair to the toilet by myself. Where am I supposed to go? That's not really my problem, is it?" Her eyes were ice. "You're an adult. You had a career before the accident. You must have some savings. And I'm sure there are government programs for people like you. People like me." The disgust in her voice was unmistakable. "I used all my savings on medical bills," I said. "The insurance didn't cover everything. And I can't work right now, I'm still in therapy 5 days a week." "Well," Victoria said, standing up and gathering her papers. "You have until the end of the month. That gives you 3 weeks. Patrick and I have been more than patient, but we need to move forward with the sale." I looked at Patrick, hoping for any sign of humanity. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. He just stood there, his hand on Victoria's back, silent and complicit. "Victoria, please." I was begging now, and I hated myself for it. I'm your sister. I have nowhere to go. She paused at the door and looked back at me. What she said next, I'll never forget. Find somewhere else to die, Nancy. You're useless now. Mom and Dad wasted the last months of their lives taking care of you, and it got them killed. They should have been enjoying their retirement, but instead they were hauling around their broken daughter. And for what? You can't even walk. Each word was a knife. Each syllable was designed to destroy me. You don't mean that, I whispered. I absolutely do. She opened the door. 3 weeks, Nancy. Then you're trespassing. And she left. Just like that. The sister I'd known my whole life walked out and left me sobbing in our dead parents' living room. I know this is heavy. I know this hurts to hear. But if you're still watching, it means something in this story is speaking to you. Maybe you've been betrayed by family. Maybe you've been made to feel worthless when you were at your lowest. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. These stories, these real experiences of people who've been knocked down and fought their way back up, they matter. Your support matters. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next. Because what happened 5 days later at the lawyer's office? It changed everything. The next 3 days were the darkest of my life. Darker than waking up paralyzed. Darker than losing my parents. Because now I understood that I was truly alone. I called Kate, crying so hard I could barely speak. She came over immediately with her wife Brenda, and they held me while I fell apart. How could she do this? I kept asking. How could my own sister be this cruel? Some people, Kate said quietly, show you who they really are when money is involved. And Victoria just showed you exactly who she is. Kate and Brenda offered to let me stay with them, but their apartment was a 3rd-floor walk-up. No elevator. No wheelchair access. It was physically impossible. I started looking at assisted living facilities. The decent ones cost $4,000 a month, money I didn't have. The ones I could afford were nightmares. Dark rooms that smelled like decay, indifferent staff, people warehoused and forgotten. I was 29 years old, and I was looking at ending up in a place where people go to die. On the 4th day, I got a call from someone I didn't expect, Mr. Leo Burrows, my parents' estate attorney. Not Victoria's personal lawyer, but the man who had handled my parents' affairs for over 20 years. Nancy, he said, his voice warm and familiar. I heard about your sister's visit. I'm so sorry, honey. That must have been devastating. She said you gave her the will, I said dully. That Mom and Dad left everything to her. There was a long pause. Nancy, I need you to listen to me very carefully. I did not give Victoria any will. And I need you to come to the official reading at my office this Friday at 10 a.m. Can you do that? My heart started pounding. What do you mean? I mean that your sister jumped the gun, Mr. Burrows said. And she's in for a very unpleasant surprise. Don't say anything to her. Just be there on Friday. Can you do that? Yes, I whispered. I'll be there. Good girl. And Nancy? Your parents loved you very much. More than you know. You'll understand on Friday. Friday morning, Kate drove me to Mr. Burrows' office in downtown Miami. The building was old but elegant, with wide doorways and a vintage elevator, accessible. My parents had chosen him, I realized, because they'd been thinking about me even then. Victoria was already there when we arrived, sitting in the conference room with Patrick and her attorney, Elizabeth Shawn. She looked at me with pure disdain. I'm surprised you showed up, she said. This doesn't concern you. Actually, Mr. Burrows said as he entered the room, it concerns her very much. He was a distinguished man in his 60s, with kind eyes and a stern mouth. He'd known us since we were children. He sat down at the head of the table and opened a leather folder. Before we begin, I have a question for Victoria. Victoria, did you by any chance access your parents' home safe after their death? Victoria's face twitched. Just slightly. I had to inventory their assets. I'm the executor of the estate. No, Mr. Burrows said quietly. You're not. The room went silent. Excuse me? Victoria's voice was sharp. You found an old will in their safe, Mr. Burrows continued. One dated 2015, before Nancy's career really took off, before your parents restructured their estate. That will did indeed leave the bulk of their assets to you, with the understanding that you would care for Nancy if anything happened to them. Victoria's attorney leaned forward. Mr. Burrows, if that's the most recent will. It's not. Mr. Burrows pulled out another document, this one clearly newer. Your parents updated their will 6 months ago, shortly after Nancy's accident. This is the legally binding last will and testament of Sarah and James Lincoln. It was executed properly, witnessed by 2 individuals not named in the will, and filed with this office as per Florida law. I watched Victoria's face go white. This can't be legal, she stammered. They never told me. They didn't have to tell you, Mr. Burrows said. And given how you've behaved toward your sister, I think they showed remarkably good judgment. He began to read. To our beloved daughter Nancy, who has shown more courage and grace in 6 months than most people show in a lifetime, we leave the following: the family home and all its contents. Our investment portfolio, valued at approximately $38 million, to be held in trust and managed by Leo Burrows until Nancy is able to manage it herself or until such time as she designates a trustee of her choice. Our vacation home in the Florida Keys. And finally, a letter we wrote for you, explaining everything. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't process what I was hearing. Mr. Burrows continued. To our daughter Victoria, we leave the sum of $5 million, with the hope that she will use it wisely and with compassion. We have also established a $2 million trust fund for each of her children, to be accessed when they turn 25. What? Victoria shot to her feet. $5 million? That's it? After everything I... Sit down, Victoria, Mr. Burrows said, his voice like steel. You should be grateful you're getting anything at all. Your parents specifically added a clause stating that if you contest this will or attempt to coerce Nancy in any way, your inheritance will be reduced to $1. Patrick grabbed Victoria's arm and pulled her back into her chair. She was shaking with rage. There's more, Mr. Burrows said. He pulled out another document. This is a notarized affidavit signed by both your parents 4 days before their death. Would you like me to read it, Victoria? No, Victoria whispered. I think Nancy should hear it. Mr. Burrows cleared his throat. We, Sarah and James Lincoln, being of sound mind and body, do hereby state, we have observed our daughter Victoria's behavior toward her sister Nancy since the accident. We have watched her visit exactly once in 3 months. We have heard her complain to friends that Nancy's recovery is inconvenient and embarrassing. We have witnessed her absence when her sister needed her most. Tears were streaming down my face. We have also watched Nancy fight for every inch of progress. We have seen her push through pain that would break most people. We have witnessed her kindness, her determination, and her refusal to give up even when the world told her she should. We are more proud of her than words can express. Therefore, we have restructured our estate to ensure Nancy will never be at Victoria's mercy. We hope that someday Victoria will understand that love is not about money or status. It's about showing up. And she failed to show up when it mattered most. The silence in that room was deafening. Victoria stood up slowly. Her whole body was trembling. You poisoned them against me, she hissed at me. You played the victim and you poisoned them. I never said a word against you, I said quietly. Not one word. This was all you, Victoria. Your choices. Your actions. You're pathetic, she spat. You're a broken, pathetic. That's enough, Mr. Burrows said sharply. Victoria, I suggest you leave before you say something that costs you the $5 million you do still have. Patrick practically dragged her out. Her attorney, Elizabeth Shawn, looked mortified. I apologize, she said to Mr. Burrows. I had no idea she'd misrepresented the situation so completely. If I'd known. It's not your fault, Mr. Burrows said. You were lied to. After they left, Mr. Burrows handed me an envelope. This is the letter your parents wrote you. I'll give you privacy to read it. He patted my shoulder gently. They loved you so much, Nancy. Never doubt that. I waited until I was back in the car with Kate before I opened it. The letter was in my mother's handwriting, but I could see places where my father had added notes in the margins. My darling Nancy. If you're reading this, then the worst has happened and we're gone. I can't bear the thought of not being there to see you walk again, and you will walk again, baby. I know it in my bones. We've changed our will because we saw something in Victoria that broke our hearts. We saw her turn her back on you when you needed her most. We saw her embarrassment at your wheelchair, her impatience with your recovery. We heard her tell a friend that you were a burden and that we were wasting our time. But here's what she doesn't understand, taking care of you hasn't been a burden. It's been an honor. Every small victory you've had, every inch you've moved your toes, every moment you've stood with the walker, has filled us with more joy than all the money in the world could buy. Dad wants me to tell you, he's literally making me write this, Nancy. You're the toughest person I know. You're stronger than I ever was, and I was a Marine. Don't you dare give up. We're leaving you our estate not because you need taking care of, but because you've proven you know what matters in life. You've never let money or status define you. Even now, broken and fighting, you're kind. You say thank you to your nurses. You encourage other patients in therapy. You're who we raised you to be. As for Victoria, we're giving her enough to be comfortable, and we're protecting her children's futures. We haven't cut her off. But we won't enable her to hurt you. We won't give her power over your life. Use this money wisely, sweetheart. Finish your recovery. Go back to your ocean. Save those coral reefs you love so much. Live a huge, beautiful, important life. And know that wherever we are, we're cheering you on. We love you forever, Mom and Dad. P.S. from Dad, also, if Victoria gives you any trouble, Leo has instructions to make her life legally difficult. We didn't raise a quitter, but we also didn't raise a doormat. Stand up for yourself, kiddo. You've got this. I sobbed in that car for 20 minutes straight. Kate just held my hand and let me cry. That was 5 days ago. In those 5 days, Victoria has called me exactly once. Not to apologize. Not to admit she was wrong. But to ask if I would consider giving her an additional $10 million for family. I said no. Actually, what I said was, you told me to find somewhere else to die. You called me useless. You threw me out of my home when I was broken and grieving. You get $5 million you don't deserve, and I get to keep my dignity. We're done here. She hung up on me. I haven't heard from her since. Mr. Burrows has been incredible. He's helping me set up a foundation in my parents' names to fund spinal injury research and recovery programs. He's also helping me hire a team of the best physical therapists in the country. Money can't buy me a miracle, but it can buy me the absolute best chance at recovery. And you know what? 2 days ago, I stood up. Really stood up, with just a walker, no help, for 30 seconds. My therapist cried. I cried. It was 30 seconds, but it felt like flying. I'm staying in my parents' house. Kate and Brenda are helping me modify it for full accessibility, ramps, wider doorways, a new bathroom. Not because I'm giving up on walking, but because I'm done being ashamed of needing help. I'm done seeing my wheelchair as a weakness. This chair has carried me through the worst months of my life. It's not my enemy. It's my ally. I've also started talking to the marine biology department at the University of Miami. They want me to consult on a new coral restoration project. They've offered to modify their lab for wheelchair access. They said my mind is what matters, not my legs. I cried when they said that too. I've been crying a lot lately, but they're different tears now. Not just grief. Also hope. I've thought a lot about Victoria in the past few days. About how someone I grew up with, someone I shared a childhood with, could become so cruel. I think she saw me as competition. I think when I had my career and my independence, it threatened her somehow. And when I became disabled, she saw me as lesser. As damaged goods. As someone who didn't deserve respect or compassion. She thought she could take everything because she believed I was weak. She thought being in a wheelchair made me powerless. But my parents knew better. They saw my strength. They saw me fighting. They saw me refusing to quit even when quitting would have been so much easier. And they protected me. Not because I'm helpless, but because they knew Victoria would try to use my vulnerability against me. They gave me power and agency and choice. That's what real love looks like. It's not about the money. It's about seeing someone at their lowest and still believing in them. It's about showing up. It's about fighting for them when they're too tired to fight for themselves. Victoria failed that test. And she lost more than an inheritance. She lost her integrity. She lost her family. She lost the chance to be part of something meaningful. Meanwhile, I've gained something I never expected. I've gained clarity. I know exactly who I am now. I'm not defined by my wheelchair or my injuries or my bank account. I'm defined by how I treat people. By whether I show up when it matters. By whether I choose kindness or cruelty. I choose kindness. Every time. Even when it's hard. Even when people like Victoria make it so tempting to become bitter and angry. Because here's the truth that Victoria will never understand: you can't take someone's power by being cruel to them. You can only reveal your own lack of power. Real power is grace under pressure. It's standing up, literally or figuratively, when everything in you wants to fall down. My parents taught me that. And in their final gift, they made sure I'd never forget it. If you've made it this far, thank you. Thank you for witnessing my story. Thank you for seeing me, not as a victim, not as a tragedy, but as a person who's fighting and winning in ways that matter. If this story meant something to you, I'm asking you to do 3 things. First, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Stories like this need to be told. People who've been counted out need to know they're not alone. Your subscription helps these messages reach the people who need them most. Second, hit that like button. I know it seems small, but it tells the algorithm to share this with more people. Someone out there is being told they're worthless because they're disabled or sick or struggling. Someone needs to hear that their value doesn't come from what they can do, but from who they are. Help me reach them. And third, leave a comment. Tell me your story. Tell me about a time when someone underestimated you. Tell me about the moment you proved them wrong. We're building a community here of people who refuse to be counted out. I want to hear your voice. Because here's what I've learned: the people who try to make you feel small are usually the ones who are afraid of your strength. Victoria couldn't handle my resilience, so she tried to destroy it. She failed. And whatever you're facing right now, whoever is trying to make you feel less than, they're going to fail too. Because you're stronger than they know. You're more valuable than they can understand. And you deserve to take up space in this world. Stand up for yourself. Set your boundaries. Know your worth. And never, ever let someone else's cruelty define your value. My name is Nancy. I'm 29 years old. I live in Miami. I'm a marine biologist in a wheelchair. And I'm not done fighting. Not by a long shot. Thanks for listening. I'll see you in the next one.